They don't want to hear that. They want you to listen. They want you to listen unconditionally and love them no matter what they choose to do. I have a priest friend in New York City. Her name is Moses. Moses was a man at one time, physical man. She went through therapy for years and years. She became a woman. I met her about 2-3 years ago in New York City. She took the ordination class. Beautiful woman, big woman, beautiful, beautiful black woman. And her ministry is to work with other transgendered people. Now, unless you've been down that road, you could be compassionate because that's part of perfection, but you're not going to really, really understand what that journey's like. She does. That's her ministry. Now, the Church of Melchizedek is not a religion. We're a service order, kind of like the Shriners, you know. But what religion that we all know of on this planet would willingly and lovingly ordain and accept a transgendered individual? None. Not that I know of. In the Mormon Church, and I'm not just picking on them because everybody's got their hands on this pie, if you're a male and you're born in the Mormon Church, you're born into the order of Melchizedek as a priest. However, if they find out, or if you come out as a homosexual, you are thrown out of the church. Where's God? I love you. You're perfect just the way you are. We have some work to do. You know, that we can change the inside of a church is marvelous because it invites more people in. When I was in India, God, what time was that? The 4th time, I think it was. We went down to southern India. I'd never been to southern India. You see, there are mountains that separate northern and southern India, and the southern Indians are very dark-skinned people, almost blue. They're beautiful, you know. But the white folks and the invaders didn't cross the mountain, so they didn't pass the gene pool. So, you know, we're down there, and we're going to the ashram to Sai Baba. Well, I went because they all wanted to go, and I thought, well, you know, I'm curious, you know. So we took a bus. Oh, I have to tell you this part. We got to this town. I wish I could remember the name of the city, but I don't. And we stayed at this hotel. Oh, my God, this hotel. It was new, but it looked like it was built in 1860. It was that kind of, you know, design. There were floral designs like 6 foot tall that were like changed practically daily. All the guards had these beautiful ribbon things on and turbans. Oh, God, it was wonderful. And I'm thinking, oh, this is really great, man. I could spend some time here. And I have an adopted Indian son, Sanjar Imam, who is basically setting the foundation for us to be able to go to this ashram and sleep on the floor so we could visit Sai Baba. I thought, okay, I'll do it. Well, so anyway, we were taking a nap in our room upstairs, and the phone rang. It was my son, Sanjar. He said, Dad? I said, yeah. He said, I have some bad news. I said, what is it? He said, Sai Baba's not here at the ashram. He's gone down, he's like not too far from where you are. He's got this little place down there, and so we're not going to be staying at the ashram, so you're going to have to stay at the hotel for a couple of nights. I said, oh, okay, you know. Now this gets funny. So we're on this air-conditioned bus. I mean, here we are, these Caucasian whatevers, you know, from the West, and we're going toward this thing, and driving past us is another bus, has no windows in. There must have been 100 Indians in that bus. They were happy. And here we are in an air-conditioned bus going to this thing. You know, we got there, then you get out of the bus, and right away, the males and females are separated. There's 3 doors. Men go in here, women go in here. I don't know who goes in the middle. Maybe Moses, I don't know. So anyway, now you're separated. Now my former wife was a feminist, and I thought, God, she's going to be really upset about this, you see. But anyway, we went in, and then we were brought to the front of this huge domed thing. It actually looked like a big Quonset hut. And there were no walls, so the breeze could come through, but we were given a little teeny pad about this thick and about this big, and I have no butt, so for me to sit on that for an hour and a half is like torture. Anyway, we're sitting in there, and I'm looking around the walls to see if there are any religious symbols. Well, there were. There was a symbol for the Muslims, for the Christians, for the Jews, and the Buddhists, whatever, but there was not a blank symbol. I said, what about the person who comes here who is not one of these? Are they going to feel welcome? And now we've got the men sitting over here, the women sitting over here. I have a lot of friends who are drag queens and whatever. Well, where do they sit? Well, anyway, we're sitting here and we're waiting for Sai Baba to come in. And then finally he comes in, and he's about this tall, folks. And he has a huge afro. And he does, he really does. And he wears this orange robe until it's his birthday when he wears white. So anyway, these peacocks are flying in, and you can see hard candy being thrown through the air. I said, oh, it's like a Shriner parade. And so here comes Sai Baba. Now, he's got a long skirt on, so you can't really see his feet. I mean, he could have wheels under there because he was like gliding, kind of thing. And he came around the room, and now I'm pivoting on my little behind here and trying to, watch him. He walked up on the platform, he went like this, and then he left. I thought, oh my, if this was a concert in Central Park, they would rip the trees out and beat him by now, right? Well, he was gone, but I was curious to know what he looked like. He's a guy. He's got a lot of hair, but he's a guy, So anyway, they all wanted to go back again. They were just smitten with this. They said, oh God, this is great. We want to go back again. So they asked my son to get them in the front row again, which he did twice. So here's thousands of people from Australia, from France, all over the world, waiting to see Sai Baba, and yet my son gets us in the front row. So I thought, I've seen enough. I mean, the guy's great, but I'm fine with that. So I stayed back at the hotel, and went swimming and had a lot of fun, had a nice massage. They all came back and said, oh my God. He came in, and this time he got up on the platform and he gave some darshan, some teaching and singing, and they were thrilled. And then he went down to the front row where all of our women were sitting on their side. And one woman had told me a dream that she'd had about Sai Baba, that he came up to her and he picked up his skirt and stuck out his foot and asked her to touch his foot, which is like verboten, But that was the dream. And she said, do you think that'll happen? I said, hey, anything's possible. So he came off the riser and he walked down right to her. He gave them all vibhuti, which is like a spiritual powder. He came to her and he looked at her. He picked up his skirt and stuck out his foot. And the women around me said, don't touch. But of course, the gig is you touch my foot, so that she was thrilled. I mean, they were all really happy about that. And I came home and I asked Tom Sawyer about this experience. I said, okay, so what's with Sai Baba? He said, he's a magician. Some people will only choose to take a spiritual path if somebody can pull vibhuti out of thin air, or a rabbit out of a hat, or walk on water, and whatever. He's a magician. That's his role. He says, I'm no different from you. God resides in all of us. What I do, you can do. You've heard this before. Do you believe it or not? So we've got a lot of good teachers, including your next door neighbor and mine. So be happy is to have family, real family, the kind you can hug, the kind you can argue with and make up with. What family doesn't have its ups and downs, all right? But an opportunity to engage with one another. We no longer have the milkman to tell us that Gladys had a baby last night. We no longer have the rag man who basically took the debris away and got it recycled the way they used to do. The ice man used to come and chip off a little piece of ice and give it to all us little kids so we had something to suck on a hot day like today. No more. Those are disconnections. So we have to make new connections. My former wife's grandfather lived to be 100 years old. And what made him sad in his latter years, where he said, gee, everybody that I ever knew is dead. They're all gone. I said, well, Pop, there's a few billion people on this planet. There's a lot of people you can be friends here. He used to be in vaudeville. I said, they would love to hear your stories. So Pop died at 100. He got a call from Ronald Reagan, I guess, and congratulated him or whatever. And Pop wanted to be old as his mother when she died, and she was 100. I think if he'd negotiated, he could have added a few more years. But it was an interesting thing. So you have lots of time. This is a schoolroom, folks. We're here to learn about love and compassion and creativity against a backdrop of greed and ego. We're going to have that with us always. So gas prices are going to be what they're going to be, But you're in training. It's like summer school also. You're not here that long. 70-something years, mostly for most of us. Sometimes less, sometimes more. How long you're here, whether it's for a few seconds or for 100 years, doesn't matter. What you do here is what matters. Love yourself as God does. Care for your neighbor as your friend. When you're sick, who's going to hold your hand? You're perfect just the way you are. My youngest child is deaf in one ear, and at one time there were some healers from the Philippines who'd come into town, and everyone was running over to get done and stuff. And so my former wife took her to one of these evenings, and one of the Filipino healers wrote some words on a piece of really strong adhesive and put it on her back. Well, God, you know what it feels like to take off a Band-Aid. Like, well, it hurts. So anyway, here's this little child, deaf in one ear, being taken to this strange environment with people she didn't know, and being prayed over, and then they put this adhesive on her and said, don't let her go near water for like 3 months or something like that. So anyway, they called and wanted her to come back for another treatment. Fine. So my ex-wife called Tom. She said, Tom, here's the situation. They're trying to make me feel guilty because I don't want to take her back. She doesn't want to go. She says, Mom, they will hurt me. And what do I do? Tom said, put Patty on the phone. Let me talk to her. What did he say? Patty, I love you just the way you are. If you don't want to go, let me talk to your mother. She didn't go back. Her healing was not restored. You know, she's perfect just the way she is, with one good ear. She's living with an active alcoholic who degrades her nightly, calling her names. What? Yeah? Very interesting, very interesting. We just finished our second book, Jim and I. It's called The Gospel of Thomas. It's not, I didn't write that gospel, but back in December of 1945, some Arabs who were looking for fertilizer found this jar and took the top of it off, risking God knows what, because, you know, they believe in jinns or genies over there still. And, you know, if there's a genie in that jug and we let him out, we're in trouble. You know, you either get 3 wishes or you're annihilated, one or the other. So anyway, they were curious because, like, maybe there's gold in there, you know. So they took the top of the jar off and all this filament hit the sun and it looked like gold flakes. And they said, oh, God, we've got it. Well, what was inside were scrolls from long ago. And supposedly one of these scrolls, which later becomes what some of you know as the Nag Hammadi Library, because Nag Hammadi was the town that they were discovered near, okay? One of these was called the Gospel of Thomas. Now that's a translation from the word Didymus. That's what Thomas means in Greek. But the original gospel was the Gospel of Judas, not Iscariot. Judas means a twin. So he was a friend of somebody, but he was not Judas Iscariot. And supposedly, one of the earlier writings of the original teachings of Jesus were one of these 114 sayings. I mean, nobody can prove this, but they're really quite interesting, except they're almost impossible to understand, you know. So anyway, I found these at some point. I won't go into all the details, but I said to the source, you know, I desire to know, what do these mean? So I get a piece of paper and a pencil. So for 2 days, I received dictation. All right, number 1, this went on, and then I put them away for 5 years. Then when I was ready to write book 2, which is now going to be book 3, all about Tom Sawyer and his true stories, they said, go to your office and get book number 2. That's the second book. So I got that out, and here it is. And now that, can I understand what I couldn't understand? Because, you know, I did this. I should know what I've said. So I shut off the phone and locked the door, and I said, okay, once again, I desire to know more information, 114 sayings, all right? So then Jim encouraged me to do some sketches to go along with the sayings. Well, all that was accomplished. So October of this year, that book will be for sale through the Findhorn Press, probably get it through Amazon, get it on Kindle, you know. Our first book went around the world in 6 months. All right, there was a soldier who got it on his Kindle in Afghanistan last year. And he sent me an email first thing in the morning, and he said, Mr. Chesbourgh, he said, I've read your book, I love this. I'm coming on leave in July, and I want to be ordained. And we'll call him Bill. I wrote back and said, well, Bill, there's no ordination scheduled here in July. You know, I'm terribly sorry to tell you that. Well, you know how God works. 2 minutes later, I get an email from Bill Dewey, who was in the town next to mine. Dan, is it at all possible that we can schedule an ordination at my house in July? Bill, who do you know? He came home, he got ordained, he's now in Thailand. I got a lovely email from a gal in South Africa who thought she was crazy because she was hearing voices and knowing things. And she found the book in a bookstore, and she read it. She says, oh my God, you know, I'm not crazy. This is wonderful, you know. People from Australia, people from Japan, people from all around the world who are finding truths in there, you know, and the truth will set you free. All right, well, one of the truths is there's only God, there's only good. It's not a new idea, folks, but it is the truth. When you accept that and the rest of what we've talked about, it all becomes quite a wonderful experience to be here. Giving and receiving, being full of grace, because grace